Welcome back to the deep dive. Usually when we sit down to record these, we're trying to expand your horizons. We're looking out,
Right.
or we're looking up.
Right, way up.
But today,
Right.
today we are doing the exact opposite. We're looking down.
Straight down.
Specifically, we're looking at the ground beneath our feet. And I don't just mean, checking the pavement for gum. I mean, really looking at what's going on maybe 3, 10, 30 feet below us.
Which, if you stop and think about it, is probably the biggest blind spot we have. We walk over it every single day, we build on it, but we have almost zero concept of what's actually down there.
Exactly. You see concrete, you see grass, and your brain just shortcuts to, okay, that's dirt.
Yeah.
But we've pulled 3 sources today that are going to completely shatter that idea. Because if you actually peel back that top layer, you find this incredibly crowded, chaotic, and sometimes downright mysterious archive.
Oh, it's a fascinating space. And depending on which of our sources you listen to, the underground is either a graveyard of lost history, a network of secret tunnels, or, and this is the big one, the scene of a global cover-up.
We are covering the whole spectrum today. We're calling these the documented underground, the rumored underground, and the theorized underground.
I like that. We're moving from hard science to local folklore, and then finally into the deep end of alternative history.
So to guide us through these layers, here's what we're working with. First, we have a heavy-duty technical document, an environmental impact assessment report from Dublin, Ireland. It sounds dry, but trust me, the things they found are wild.
That's our scientific baseline.
Then we're hopping over to Lancaster, Pennsylvania. We're diving into a local Reddit thread about a map of underground tunnels that, supposedly vanished into thin air.
So that's our local lore, the modern campfire story.
And finally, we have a transcript from a YouTube channel called My Lunch Break. This one presents a massive global theory about a lost old world civilization that is literally buried beneath us, from Cyprus to Alabama.
So we have a government report, a community forum, and a conspiracy theory. It's the perfect trifecta to explore what's going on down there.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the facts. The hard science. We're in Dublin. There's a proposed transit scheme, the Metrolink, and before they can dig, they have to see what's in the way. They produce this report. Now, for the listener who hasn't read one of these, what exactly are we looking at?
So these reports are effectively legal and scientific shields. Before a city can build massive infrastructure, they have to catalog everything that might get destroyed. It's like a preemptive autopsy of the city's history. And what this one shows beautifully is the concept of stratigraphy.
Stratigraphy, that's the whole layer cake thing, right?
Exactly. Think of a city like Dublin as a lasagna. It's not just one city, it's a stack of them. You have the modern street level on top. But underneath that, you've got Georgian Dublin. Under that, medieval Dublin. Under that, Viking Dublin.
And this report isn't just saying, oh, there might be stuff there. They're finding specific things that change the map.
Right.
There's one find in here that really blew my mind. They were investigating around Hammond Lane and Church Street, and they found a Hiberno-Norse Type 1 house.
Right, and this is a huge find for the archaeologists. We're talking late 11th, early 12th century. This is that era where the Viking invaders are settling down, integrating, becoming Hiberno-Norse.
And why is this specific house such a big deal?
Because of where it is, it was found on the north side of the River Liffey. See, the traditional historical narrative, the map we thought we knew, suggested that the settlement was all heavily concentrated on the south side back then.
So finding this house is like finding a puzzle piece that just doesn't fit the picture on the box.
Precisely. It suggests the urban sprawl, the density of that whole Viking medieval transition was way more extensive than we thought. It completely redraws the boundaries of the ancient city.
But here's where it gets really interesting to me. The report doesn't just catalog what they found. It catalogs how previous generations destroyed history. It talks about these Dutch billy houses.
Yes, Dutch billies. Yeah. These were these gabled houses, very fashionable in the late 17th, early 18th centuries. They looked a bit like what you'd see in Amsterdam, hence the name.
But to build a fashionable house back then, you needed a basement. You needed storage.
Right. And the report details how when the developers of the 18th century dug those basements, they just smashed right through the medieval layers. They didn't care about Viking heritage. They wanted a wine cellar.
It's history eating history.
That is a great way to put it. The report explicitly says that the construction of these basements just erased the history of the previous 500 years in those spots. It reminds you that preservation is a very modern idea. For most of history, the ground was just space.
Speaking of things we use the ground for, let's talk water. The report mentions the River Wad and the River Bradog.
Hmm.
Now, I've looked at a map of Dublin. I don't see these rivers.
You wouldn't. They're what we call lost rivers. As the city expanded, these streams and rivers just got in the way. They'd flood or they'd block roads or, they became open sewers.
So what they do, they just buried
They
them.
culverted them. They basically forced the river into a pipe or a stone channel and then just paved right over it. The report mentions Wad Bridge. Now, on a modern map, calling a straight Wad Bridge makes no sense because there's no water. But 6 feet down, that river is still rushing.
That is such a wild image to me. You could be standing on a street corner waiting for a bus, checking your phone, and literally right beneath your feet, there's a river flowing in total darkness.
It's a reminder that the natural landscape doesn't just vanish because we pour concrete on it, it just goes underground.
Or a cemetery. We had to talk about the skeletons. You can't have an underground deep dive without skeletons.
It's a rule of the genre, yeah. The report is very detailed here, especially around Glasnevin and this early church site from like 544 AD. But the finding that really stands out to me involves the home farm football pitch.
This is the soccer field. People play there every weekend.
They do. And in 2008, investigations under that pitch turned up human remains, a male skeleton over 25 years old. They radiocarbon dated him to between 585 and 651 AD.
That is just visceral. You're playing a match, sliding for a tackle, and literally a meter beneath you is a guy from the 7th century.
And he wasn't alone. They found skeletons nearby in 1941 and 1956. It proves that hidden history isn't some abstract idea. It's physical, it's bone.
And it's not just people, it's entire estates.
Right.
The report mentions Delville House.
A tragic loss, that one. Delville House was this grand estate demolished in the 1950s to build a hospital. The report describes finding structural remains, demolition, rubble just shoved into the soil.
It shows how quickly grandeur becomes landfill. One minute you're a mansion, the next you're just a layer of debris under a hospital parking lot.
And that's the big lesson of the Dublin report, right? The underground is a busy, crowded, physical reality. It's messy, but it's documented.
So that is the documented underground. Now, I want to pivot. We're crossing the Atlantic, and we're leaving the archaeologists behind. We're going to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and we're hanging out with the locals on Reddit.
This is a totally different kind of source. We're now in the world of the Reddit sleuth. This is, oral history for the digital age.
The thread starts with a user asking a very simple but very suspicious question. They ask, has anyone else noticed that the old map of Lancaster's underground tunnels is gone from the visitor center?
And that's a classic hook. It establishes there was knowledge, a map, and now that knowledge has been removed, suppressed. It's a little glitch in the matrix moment for the community.
The user says this map used to hang near the back by the pamphlets. It showed old Subic lines, prohibition routes, whatever they claimed it was. But when they asked the staff where it went, the staff said they don't recall it.
I don't recall. That phrase is like gasoline for a conspiracy. To a suspicious mind, that's basically an admission of guilt.
The user calls it convenient, and naturally, the comment section just explodes. If the map is gone, well, what are they hiding?
And this is what fascinates me about the rumored underground. In the absence of the official map, the imagination just fills in the blanks. The community starts building their own map from rumors and stories.
And the theories are all over the place. You've got the practical ones, old sewage lines, storm drains. Then you get the historical ones, prohibition routes for bootleggers, specifically under North Queen Street.
Which is totally plausible historically. Lancaster's an old city. A lot of American cities use connected basements to move alcohol during Prohibition.
But then it goes deeper. Underground railroad connections, Masonic lodges with sealed chambers. One user even jokes they're digging a tunnel to Dipko's basement.
There's a psychological need there, isn't there? We want to believe the city has a secret function. It's not just a place to live, it's a puzzle to solve. If there are sealed chambers beneath the pavement, suddenly your Tuesday afternoon walk feels a lot more thrilling.
There's one specific anecdote in the thread about the credit store that I loved. A user claims that back in the 70s, you could go into the basement of one store and come out in a completely different store on another street.
That connectivity is key. It's the Narnia effect. The idea that the boundaries we see on the surface, wall A, wall B, they just don't apply underground. Down there, everything is connected.
But then the thread gets into the boom.
Yes, the mysterious noise.
Several users talk about hearing a loud boom and feeling the ground shake. And one user gets incredibly technical about it. He speculates it could be a structural anomaly in the sublayer or localized pressure release. He even throws in elevated EM fluctuations.
Notice the language shift there. He's trying to apply scientific sounding terms to a rumor. It validates the whole thing. It's not just a noise, it's a structural anomaly. It ties the physical event to the missing map. The logic becomes the ground shook, the map is gone, therefore something is happening down there.
And then you have my personal favorite user, Paperum Ninja.
He's great.
He claims, I should be into Dipko's basement by spring, implying he's digging his own tunnel. And the other user immediately replies, this smells like a cover story.
Even the joke becomes part of the conspiracy. But it highlights a key difference here. In Dublin, the underground is a place you study. In Lancaster, it's a place you penetrate. You dig into it, you explore it.
Because the authorities, the people who took the map, are the gatekeepers.
Precisely.
Ugh.
In Lancaster, the underground is this battlefield between the official narrative and the locals who think they know the real truth.
Which sets us up perfectly for our third source. Because if the Lancaster Redditors think the visitor center is hiding something, the YouTube channel My Lunch Break thinks everyone is hiding everything.
Right. We are stepping into the deep end here. This is the theorized underground. This touches on the old world theory, which is often sort of adjacent to the Tartaria concept you might have seen online.
So for the listener who has never stumbled onto this side of the internet, and it is a deep rabbit hole, break down the core argument of this transcript.
The core argument is massive. It claims that the timeline of human history we're taught is fundamentally false. The source claims that a highly advanced global civilization existed as recently as the 1800s. They built these impossible structures.
Right.
And then there was a reset.
A resec.
A cataclysm, a wipe. And the claim is that the people we see in the history books, the pioneers, the Victorians, they weren't the builders, they were the survivors, or maybe squatters. The source calls them people living in shacks and outhouses who just moved into the ruins of this superior civilization.
And the evidence they present for this is largely underground.
Correct. The source takes us on this global tour. Cyprus, Syria, Pakistan. Specifically, sites like the tombs of the kings or the dead cities. Now, where an archaeologist sees a necropolis, a cemetery, this source sees old world tech, or maybe habitations that have been buried by this reset.
They're particularly fixated on the scale of things. They mentioned the Chaukhandi tombs in Pakistan.
Yes. The source notes that some of these structures are 12 to 14 feet tall. Now, standard archaeology says it's a grand monument. You build big to show respect for the dead. This source says, no, it's 12 feet tall because the people who used it were giants.
Giants.
Literal giants. The argument is, look at the door. The door is huge. Why build a huge door for a normal-sized human? It's a very literal interpretation of architecture.
And it's not just overseas. The source points to the U.S., the Cahokia Mounds in Illinois and Moundville in Alabama.
Historically, these are recognized as the centers of Mississippian culture. Huge earthen pyramids. But the source claims they aren't just piles of dirt. They argue they are buried buildings, temples, factories that were covered up by the reset and just look like hills now.
And the reason we don't know this, the cover-up. The source has a specific name for the archaeologists. They call them the wizards.
The wizards of the 1870s. This refers to the archaeologists and historians who established the modern timeline. And the source views excavation not as discovery, but as destruction.
Excavation as looting. That's the phrase that stuck with me.
Exactly. The theory goes, why do we dig up these sites? To hide the evidence. If you dig it up, you can remove the advanced tech, you can hide the giant bones, and you can tell the public, oh, look, we found some pottery.
The pottery distraction. I have to say, the source seems personally offended by pottery shards.
It's a clever rhetorical tactic. Pottery is mundane. It represents daily life. By dismissing it as a distraction, the source clears the deck to fantasize about the real find. They ask, why would a civilization that could cut these massive stones just be making clay bowls?
It's a rejection of the slow, incremental progress of history. They want the magic. They want the giants.
And they deeply distrust the dating methods. The transcript makes this recurring joke about dating sites based on local weeds or bushes. It's a complete dismissal of carbon dating or stratigraphy, the very things we trusted in the Dublin report. Here, those tools are part of the lie.
So if we pull back and look at all three of these sources, we have this fascinating tension.
It's a conflict over authority, really. Who owns the ground?
In Dublin, the experts own it. They define what's valuable. They say, this is a Viking house, this is a drain, this is the truth.
In Lancaster, the ownership is contested. The city removed the map, but the people are reclaiming the space through stories. They're saying, no, we know what's down there.
And in the old world theory, the experts are the enemy. The ground belongs to a lost, superior past, and the modern world is just a cover-up.
But there's a common thread connecting the Dublin archaeologist, the Lancaster Redditor, and the YouTube theorist:
What's that?
the preservation paradox.
Unpack that for me.
In the Dublin report, preservation is a positive act. We record the medieval wall before the train destroys it. We save the data. But in the conspiracy sources, preservation is a weapon. When a site is closed for preservation, like the tombs in Cyprus or a tunnel in Lancaster, the immediate assumption is they are locking us out.
Preservation becomes secrecy.
Exactly. If you put a fence around it, the human brain says, you must be hiding something good. It reveals this deep cynicism about institutions. We don't trust that they're saving history for us. We think they're saving it from us.
And that drives the imagination wild. It seems like the underground acts as the subconscious of the city. We dump our trash there, we bury our dead there, and we project our fears there.
It's the ultimate black box. Because you can't see through the pavement, you can project anything onto it. A Viking house? Sure. A bootlegger tunnel? Why not? A giant's temple? If you don't trust the experts, that theory feels just as valid as the others.
It's interesting that the Dublin report, the science, actually validates the core feeling of the conspiracy theorists. It confirms that the ground is crowded. There are things down there.
That's the irony. The conspiracy theorists are right about the density. The ground is packed with ruins and bodies and lost infrastructure. They just disagree on what those things are.
The reality, a 7th century skeleton under a football pitch, is actually pretty mind-blowing on its own. You don't really need giants to make that interesting.
I would argue the reality is more profound. The idea that we're walking on layers of human lives, people who worked and ate and died right where we're standing, that connects us to humanity. The giant theory disconnects us. It says, we couldn't have built this, someone else did.
That's a powerful distinction. One view connects us to our ancestors. The other alienates us from our own capabilities. So we've gone from the scientifically mapped grains of medieval Dublin to the missing maps of Pennsylvania to a global theory of giants and buried civilizations.
We have seen that the ground beneath us is a very, very busy place.
It really makes you look at your own floor differently.
It does. It makes you realize the surface is just this thin crust.
The YouTube source asks, where did the previous civilization go? Implying they're right under our feet.
And the Lancaster source asks, where did the map go? Implying someone is curating our reality.
And the Dublin source simply asks, what are we about to destroy to build the next thing?
Fair question.
Perhaps the most unsettling question for you, the listener, is this. What is currently sitting directly beneath your house? A stream, a skeleton, a bunker.
And if you found a trapdoor leading down?
Would you trust what the experts told you was inside? Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. Keep diving.